Hey everyone, welcome to Food Talk Live. Today I get to chat with the director of the Culinary and Wellness Services for the Minneapolis Public Schools, Bertrand Weber. With his leadership and guidance, Minneapolis provides their students and communities with healthy, fresh meals and are on the leading edge of the farm to school movement. He is also a recipient of the International Food Service Manufacturers Association Silver Plate Awards. Congratulations on that award, Bertrand.
Thank you. It was so unexpected. Just an amazing surprise.
Well, it's well earned. We know how hard you've been working. I want to start off with sort of, you have such a rich culinary history and background, and often how I start the podcast is by asking what your favorite food memory is. Do you have one you want to share?
I think my favorite food memory is probably large family meals at my grandmother's house, where
Nice.
there was 18 cousins and all the moms and dads, and just good old-fashioned farm food. Knowing that was in Switzerland, it's a little different than here, but it's still some of my kids' favorite recipe are grandmama's pot roast or grandmama's dressing, so they're still very fond memories of those family meals.
That's wonderful. And what brought you from Switzerland all the way to Minnesota?
It's a long story, but make it short. I came with my parents, didn't have much of a choice. I was 15. My dad actually moved from Switzerland to open a restaurant in South Florida. So I finished high school in South Florida, went back to Geneva briefly, came back to the States, and made my way up the East Coast in hotels and resorts.
Wow.
From Northern Florida at Sawgrass, TPC, to New Bern, North Carolina, Cape Cod, and then on to Minnesota. Moved to Minnesota in 91.
That's great. That's great. So this culinary background you have is really instilled in you because your father worked in hospitality. You have this really great background. But you've done something very unique and before a lot of others did with Minnesota's first farm to school initiative. Can you tell us how you were able to get that program off the ground? Why did you think it was important to source from local farms?
I remember the first. So I started in school food in 2003 at a small district outside of Minneapolis. And I remember going to the farmer's market for me and buying food, and all of a sudden kind of going, wait a minute, why aren't we serving this to our kids? Why?
Right.
It makes no sense. We have this wonderful, although short period of time, but we've got this wonderful harvest. Why can't we serve this to our kids? Well, come to find out, there was procurement issues. There's a lot of hoops to run through, but ultimately we're able to do it. And why not? It's fresh food, it's quality food, it supports the local economy. And I tell you what, the food that is harvested within a week is like nature's candy.
Right.
We're struggling, or there's the perception that kids don't eat vegetables. When they are fresh right off the vine, it is nature's candy. Whether it's a watermelon radish, whether it's a cucumber, there's so many wonderful things. So that's really what got me motivated, is getting off the highly processed food and serving fresh food from local emerging farmers, and getting the kids reconnected with their food.
Absolutely. I mean, it seems like such a win-win-win. It's a win for the kids. It's a win for the farmers. It's a win for the whole local economy. It's a win for culinary directors like you. I mean, it makes your job much more pleasurable. You get to introduce kids to all of these things that they might not have eaten before. And to be honest, I think we give kids like a bad rap that we assume that they don't want to try new things. I have stepkids. They're often skeptical, but if you get them to take one bite, like they had chard for the first time last weekend, and they were like, oh, I do like this. And if you give them the opportunity to like it, they can.
We created this whole kids food. There is no kids food.
Right.
And they will eat when the food is really good. Unfortunately, we did a disservice to them by introducing them to a lot of convenience food at an early age. And yeah, they become accustomed to it. But it's not true. Kids will eat absolutely wonderful food. When you travel around the world, I was in Peru a couple of years ago, and going to the farmer's market and seeing those kids eating those meals, sitting down with a knife and fork. And of course,
Right.
kids will eat food. It's wonderful. Uh, going back to the win-win, I think one of the most beautiful thing with farm to school is, as a school district, you can offer a farmer an opportunity to purchase a whole field without having them going, marketing the field or having to go to farmers market,
Right.
and taking my staff to a farm and saying, this is our field. All those carrots will end up in those kids. And most of our farmers use organic growing practice, even though they might not be certified.
Sure.
So it truly is a win-win. And we have the same thing with one of our turkey farmers, so yeah, it's really cool.
That's really exciting. How many kids are you let's talk about pre-COVID first. How many kids during a normal school year are you feeding each day?
So we were serving approximately 16,000 breakfasts and about 25 to 28,000 lunches,
Wow.
plus about 6,000 suppers. So that would be on an average. Obviously, COVID changed that drastically.
Let's talk about that. So you've really had to expand your services. Ironically, some would think, because the schools are closed, and I'm not sure what's happening in Minneapolis with them reopening for the fall, but you've had to really step up your game in terms of food service to reach kids because they're not in school anymore. Can you talk about how that process sort of unfolded for you?
Absolutely. So on March 15th, we revamped our program with COVID, and we were going to remove all salad bars and all self-serve. On the 16th, we got the word that the schools were going to be closing. And on the 17th, we revamped everything, where we transitioned from serving in schools to having 20 pickup sites around the Twin Cities where families could pick up lunch and breakfast. 3 weeks later, or 2 weeks later, we quickly realized that was not efficient, neither for us or families. And we transitioned to making a box with 5 breakfasts and 5 lunches. And we now went to 10 sites per day, 5 days a week. So reaching out 50 sites throughout the city. Then we transitioned to, once we were able to 7 breakfasts and 7 lunch, because we saw the need.
Sure.
School ended, summer started, we continued with the program. Then we had the horrible event with George Floyd, and we've increased our reach because some of we needed to increase some of the sites in that area of the cities
Sure.
that were affected. And now we kind of pulled back a little bit. And we're having 1 more weeks of those box delivery. And then on September 8th, we start again. And our district is fully distance learning. So we're transitioning from emergency food boxes, which are really available to any children 18 and under, to now transitioning to the National School Lunch Program in September, which is for enrolled students. So we will have, again, boxes, which will look different. It's a 2-week cycle menu. We're incorporating some of the farm to school items in those boxes, although it is very challenging. How do you cut and pack fresh melon off the field, knowing it's going to be in a box, possibly up to 7 days?
Sure.
So there's many challenges that comes with that. But we will be back to serving meal boxes. Now they're school meal boxes instead of being emergency meal boxes.
Sure.
That students and families can pick up from their school where they're enrolled. So we're still providing the food for those kids.
Right.
We have upward of 55% of our students qualify for free and reduced meals. So there is an incredible need to nourish our students. And with COVID, we're seeing families that otherwise did not need, a lunch, are now depending on us. And those kids, it's hunger doesn't take a break.
No.
Hunger doesn't know about COVID.
Right.
So knowing that, we're really focusing on the best quality food for those kids, because they need it, not just for them, but how can you even think about learning if your stomach is hungry. You can't.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's a year-long challenge for you, pandemic or not, to make sure that kids, that their minds and their bodies are both nourished. But this is just, placed an incredible burden on your school district, on so many school districts across the country. How has your staff reacted to these changes and the pivot after pivot after pivot that you've had to make?
Right now, they're tired. They really are tired. And I think that holds true at all level. I mean, from the administrative staff is really strained and you're drained. We have to be fluid, making changes all the time. And, we had transition. All of our schools were now staffed with we had cook, we have lead cooks. So really setting it up like you would in a restaurant. They're now packing boxes.
Yeah.
Now, granted, they're working, but it's a huge shift for them. They realize how important they are, and we really haven't had, I don't want to say any pushback or negative comments, but they are tired. They want to go back to cooking.
I'm sure.
Packing boxes when your passion is cooking is difficult, but overall they're doing great. They're scared. They've been on the front line from the very beginning when everybody, including myself, started working remotely. They're in the front line. They're on the street. They're serving our customers. So, kudos to them. They're heroes in my world. They're the unsung heroes that we don't realize are out there every single day.
Absolutely, and have not had a break, as you mentioned. There was no summertime off for them.
No summertime.
And so now they're just going to get back in the thick of the things in September for the fall. You mentioned your customers, and I like that you referred to the kids that you're feeding in that way. What has their reaction been to the meals?
So I have to be real honest that we haven't had as much connection with the kids themselves. We've had more connection with the parents. Now we have had a lot of social media feedback. And we have received a lot of really cute notes from kids, handwritten notes, and on Facebook about thank you, we love the food, we appreciate that. But parents have been really, they're the one who have been funny. There's actually a Facebook group. It's MPS Food Box Recipe Group, and they're exchanging idea of what to do with the recipes and so on and so forth. And so we do videos every week about how to use the food in the box. And we did a virtual junior chef competition. So we are getting a lot of positive feedback from that perspective. But the engagement with the kid, unfortunately, kind of goes away when you hand a parent 1 or 2 or 3 boxes, because most of the time it's the parents who's picking up the box. And so we're missing that. You're missing that front line, seeing those smiley face or hungry face or the thank you, the high five, knowing that they really love the food. But the feedback has been really great, at least from a social media perspective.
Well, and I mean, I think that that's indicative of how successful this is, that people feel free to comment, to form these Facebook groups, to really engage with the food and with, what you all are doing to make sure that their kids are fed. You mentioned the importance of the farmers before and the sort of stability a farm to school program can provide in terms of, hey, I can buy your whole field for the year. Can you talk about how that's ongoing with the farmers now? Farmers, like schools, and are really struggling during this time to make sure that they can sort of stay in business.
So from the very beginning of COVID, we reached out to our farmers because we actually contract in December, January, we actually contract forward for very specific item. So we reached out to them and we're very upfront that we would honor as much as we could of our commitment, knowing of the uncertainty, and that we would keep them up to give them updates. To this day, we are trying our best. They're struggling just like everybody else. We hear from them all the time. Will you be able to get this? My field is ready for harvest. Unfortunately, there are some products that we can't use.
Right.
Right now, we're not cooking. So typically in a school year, uh, our potato, 100% of all our potatoes come from local farms. Right now, we're not cooking. A month from now, that might change. Thank God, potatoes, can store for a while.
Sure.
Uh, but I certainly can't serve raw potatoes. We're going to be serving sliced zucchini in bags and carrots and all of that. So those are available. But when it comes to, cabbage, I think we'll graduate when it's time for cabbage to do coleslaw and things like that. So for the most part, we're still honoring all of our contracts to the best of
Hmm.
our ability. But we hear from them what a struggle, because they've lost half their customers themselves.
Absolutely.
A lot of the restaurants that are, are at maybe 25% best. It's taking a chunk out of those farmers. So I think as a school, we have an opportunity, because at least we have, even though it's still uncertain, but our revenue stream, our funding will still come through as
Right.
long as we can really do the best and provide meals for those students. So anything we can do to help them out, and keeping in mind, ultimately, we want to satisfy our kids, I think is truly important.
Absolutely. I know you were one of the original members of the National Farm to School Council. You have this real commitment to local food, to true food, as you refer to it. What sort of, I'm sure you've had to make some concessions to that sort of commitment during COVID, things that you probably, had to do that you wouldn't have done during a normal school year. Has there been anything that's sort of bothered you the most as someone who's so committed to real food?
Uh, so we're still committed to our true food philosophy, which is that's our kind of our motto. But it has been very, very hard, not just for me, but for our staff in general, in some of the initiatives that we have that we started with COVID. Obviously, we've eliminated all. Even though we're not in school, when we go back in school, we know that for the immediate future, we won't have salad bars. So we can't
Sure.
showcase. Salad bar is one of the best way to empower kids to try new, beautiful local food. That's
Yeah.
gone. We were ready to turn on the switch to a pilot at 3 high schools that was really focusing on plant-based protein,
Mm.
not meat analog, just plant-based protein, the real stuff,
Sure.
not processed.
Nice.
We had the recipes, the kids had a marketing campaign, we had a logo, everything right. That's now sitting, waiting to be brought back, but it's going to be another year. We had a
Sure.
whole campaign around food waste reduction called True Food No Waste. We're now increasing our waste. We're
Yeah.
increasing disposable. We're increasing plastic. And that's really frustrating that, it's unfortunately, we're fortunate that we can still do our work and still do our job and provide food to the kids. And we're staying true to as much as possible to our philosophy. But we obviously have had to go into a lot more of buying pre-made
Sure.
items as opposed to making them ourselves. But we're
Yeah.
still doing, there's a local salsa company called Salsa Lisa, and she's been donating salsa that we've been putting in boxes. I mean,
That's
there's
great.
still a lot of really fun stuff that you can do. Uh, we have a frozen pizza, and then one of our chef showcases recipe what to do with the box and make the pizza even more fun with local.
Nice.
So you can still do some of that stuff, but the big overall objectives, have taken a step back.
Sure. I like how you're very future thinking, though. You're saying next year, I mean, these plans will still be there. This is a temporary thing, and we all have to get through this. Folks should wear their masks so we get through it quicker. We've talked a lot about vegetables and the produce that you serve kids. Can you talk a little bit about what you serve in terms of protein? You talked about plant-based protein, but animal protein, I know you've been very committed to procuring from local suppliers. Is that still the case?
That's still the case. In a school environment, protein is the most expensive part of the plate, and local protein are typically much more expensive than the commercial products. However, we're still committed to it. We work with a local turkey farmer, so we will. In the meal box will be a turkey burger that comes from Cannon Fall, 30 miles from our schools. We won't be doing chicken because we don't have the ability to cook the chicken anymore, but the turkeys are being pre-cooked someplace else. We do a local grass-fed beef hot dogs. We can't do their pot roast again because things have changed. So the commitment to the protein is still there, but the availability and what we can use it for has kind of reduced quite a bit with COVID. So the main thing we're doing the turkey burger. We might be looking at doing some taco meat and those kind of thing, but it has been reduced, unfortunately.
Yeah, I imagine. There's just no other way to get around these sort of difficulties.
No.
On a different note, you were awarded a 2020 USDA Farm to School grant. And I'm wondering, how that grant, what you plan to do with it. If it's already, if you already have plans for it, are those things already happening?
Yes. So this particular grant was focusing on our urban educational farm. So that's taking a step back because, unfortunately, most of the field trips will be curtailed, and the focus of the farm was to bring students to the farm.
Right.
So we will continue. Well, obviously, we're moving forward with the grant. We'll be hiring a person to administer the farm, develop curriculum. So the first year will be more, unfortunately, I think, not so much hands-on as in really robust development of curriculum and programming, so that we can roll out with it as soon as we can get all the students back able to come. So yeah, it was all around this urban educational farm, which is right in front of our nutrition center. It's most beautiful harvest this year, and the community is enjoying it. So at least that's a great thing.
That's
but
wonderful.
Yeah, it was great for us to get the award. Timing a little off, but what can you do?
I know, timing.
Can't control that.
No, absolutely. And I love that I think it makes so much sense, and to not just serve kids healthy, delicious things, but to also incorporate that learning process that goes along with it, so that they know how food is grown, where it comes from, getting that all in place so that, there's a real cycle of knowledge that happens.
That's still to this day the hardest thing to do. We're working really hard in making available resources for teachers, resources for family, resources for kids. We do bring farmers in the classroom, and it's just so much fun to see the kids hearing directly from the farmers. And some of the questions they have is just priceless. And one of the kid was asking our turkey farmer if he kills the turkeys himself, and those kind of questions. But in the overall programming, that's still the hardest thing to do.
Sure. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah. And get them engaged, getting those students engaged. And it from a food perspective, our society has really, the value of food has not been elevated the way it should. And the value of cheap food is way too high.
Right.
So it's having to re-engage with our students to change their perception of what food is.
Absolutely.
Because what they know is what they see, and what they see is what is marketed to them. So it is a lot of work, but it's all worth it. I always say, if one kid today eats a watermelon radish more than yesterday, we're going the right direction.
That's great. That's really wonderful. I know you bring farmers in the classroom, but you also do collaborations with chefs, and I imagine that increases interest in food as well among the students.
So I think it was like 6 years ago uh, that one of the things that the school food environment was facing was some negative feedback, and the food revolution from Jamie Oliver really kind of misrepresented what
Sure.
some of the work that was done. And I thought to myself, we are part of the food system. We are part of the food scene. I have the largest franchise in the Twin City. I have
Right.
72 franchise.
Right.
Why can't I reach out to the restaurants and say, hey, chefs, I need your help. I have your future customers. This is my
Right.
philosophy. This is what I believe in. I love your restaurant. I love your food. Let's collaborate and partner and help me promote good quality food. And we started with one restaurant. We used one of their recipes, and then we reached out to more restaurants. We had a who's who in one of the meeting.
Great.
So it's been up and down because obviously they have their focus as well. And right now it's been very difficult for them.
Sure.
But we feature some of their salads, some of their food. We have the Birchwood Cafe turkey burger that was ready to be served right before we shut
Uh,
down. So now it's in a freezer waiting to be. But those kind of thing has been fabulous,
that's
and
great.
and truly, it's elevating. And I think the value also is with some of the parents by elevating. Food it served in school to be more than school food. It's not school food. It's just great food that
Food.
happens to be
Right.
served in school.
Right.
Uh, and the chefs have helped with that. We've had them in the cafeteria. They actually did a fundraiser for salad bars, and they came dedicated to salad bars. When we have a taste test, we've had whole restaurants and their staff that come and help serve the kids. We have chefs that come and pass out the taste test. So it's a great community involvement because after all,
Sure.
again, we're part of the food system. We are a
Sure.
restaurant.
Sure, and I love that you're mentioning community involvement. Minneapolis has faced some terrible challenges over the last few months with the murder of George Floyd and the uprisings. I wonder how you look as you look towards the beginning of the school year and into next year, how to incorporate the food justice component into your educational work and teaching kids about equality in the food system.
It's I just got off the phone not too long ago with the Center for Eco Literacy in California with Adam, and we were just having this discussion about food justice and equity, and how do we inform our kids around that. Uh, so I think it's going to be the same as the food system of where their food comes from. It's going to be ongoing effort that we're going to have to
Sure.
do for them to understand the equity around food and food justice. But it's not going to happen. It's not turning on a switch. It's going to take a
Right.
long time for that to happen. Uh, and we've got some great kids. Can't wait to re-engage them because when they actually are the ones that develop campaign and it's by kids for kids, it's much
Hmm.
more uh, the kids embrace it a lot more than if it's us developing a campaign. So I,
Absolutely.
th- I think with all of the events that took place, and once we're able to get back engaged with those students, we'll have the opportunity to maybe elevate that by doing some developing some kind of marketing campaign with our students themselves.
Well, and you mentioned this, it's not like flipping a switch. This is an ongoing effort. It's not only an ongoing effort for kids, it's an ongoing effort for adults, for us to educate ourselves, for us to confront our own biases, all of those things that need to happen to achieve real food justice and real racial equality in this country. So these are not easy things to take on
Oh
for
no.
any. Right, absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
and and it's unfortunately it's nothing new. I think it's just It, the COVID-19, the George Floyd has really elevated and brought it to the forefront. But like
Right.
you said, this is not, unfortunately, I wish I could say it's something new. It's not. It's something we need to really address and face it and accept it, and not keep pushing it to the side.
Right.
And kids are the future. So what they're the ones who are going to make the difference. You know,
Absolutely.
I'm going to retire not too long. I'm going to eventually go by the wayside. My kids are taking over. Their kids are taking. They're the ones who are going to make the difference. They really
Absolutely.
are.
And
Yeah.
that's why the work that you're doing is so important right now, to nourish their minds, to nourish their bodies, to make sure that they're engaged, that they know where their food comes from. Before we end, I'm wondering, you've been so positive and upbeat during this interview. What has frustrated you the most? I'm wondering, a lot of people in your position would be complaining about the lack of a support from the government, that how a school has been how the school districts have been sort of assigned this role as filling a void that actually government should be filling. Do you have any frustrations that like your policymakers in Minnesota to take care of because they haven't?
Uh, yeah, frustration. I think every day is a new frustration. Uh, but you know, the old expression of when you're given lemons, you make lemonade. This is the deck of card I have. Okay, I had a text from my assistant. We're talking about funding and budgets, and we're fortunate that we still have a positive fund balance. And he says to me in a text, "Is this sustainable?" And I responded back, say, "We don't have a choice. We will make it sustainable. We'll find a
Right.
way." Uh, and I think that's what drives me. The frustration. I can get frustrated all I want. What is that going to do? Nothing. I can only do what I can only be in control of what I have, and that's the way we've been operating. We're doing what we do best with the deck of cards that we've been given, and the hand changes every single day, so we need
Sure.
to readjust our game. But that's the way yeah, I can sit here and complain, give you all of the things that are wrong, all of the things I should have. Yes, we should have this waiver. Yes, we should have universal meals. Yes, we should have all that. We don't. So knowing that, let's do the best we can with what we
Sure.
have, even
Sure.
if it's not perfect.
And you're right, the hand changes every day. This has
Every
been a
day.
constant pivot for so many people in your position. And I applaud you and all of the work that you and your colleagues have done. It's really amazing what you've been able to do. Please stay well. Please keep up the good work, and good luck with the new school year.
Thank you. And I can't praise enough all the school districts around the country, the amazing work they've done during this time.
They are unsung heroes, as
Yes,
are you. Thank you so much, Bertrand.
you're quite welcome. Thank you.